"Open up! It's me, Lot!" he cried out. The door creaked open. "What is this madness, old man?" one of them grunted. "You must leave this place now," he urged. "The Lord is about to destroy the city." Have you ever wondered how it really felt to walk the streets of Sodom and Gomorrah before their destruction? To see the people's faces, to hear their words, and to watch the drama unfold right before your eyes? Today, we step into this ancient city. Prepare yourself to see, hear, and even feel every moment as it happened. Genesis 18:16-33. The sun hung lazily in the sky, and a soft wind rustled through the leaves of the great oak trees near Mamre. Abraham sat at the entrance of his tent. His eyes narrowed as he watched the three visitors rise from the meal he had just served them. They were no ordinary men. There was something divine about their faces, calm yet full of power. The visitors exchanged glances. One of them, the Lord himself, appearing as a man, looked toward the horizon, where the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah lay, hidden behind hills. The Lord's voice was low, thoughtful, yet filled with purpose as he spoke softly but firmly. "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do?" he said aloud, his eyes glimmering with wisdom. Abraham's heart began to beat faster. He stood up, wiping his hands on his robe nervously. His face tightened. He could sense something serious was about to be revealed. The Lord turned toward him fully, his face both fierce and gentle. His voice rolled like thunder wrapped in silk. "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great," he said, his eyes narrowing, "and their sin is very grave." Abraham's breath caught in his throat. He shifted his weight, standing straighter but with a tremble in his hands. "I will go down and see," the Lord continued, "whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me. If not, I will know." The two other men, the angels, turned and began walking toward Sodom, their steps firm, their faces set like flint. But Abraham, his heart pounding wildly, stepped forward. He boldly but humbly reached out his hand, barely brushing the hem of the Lord's robe. "Please, my Lord," Abraham said, his voice shaking but determined, "will you destroy the righteous along with the wicked?" The Lord looked at Abraham deeply, his face unreadable. Abraham swallowed hard and continued, his forehead wrinkled with worry. "Suppose there are 50 righteous people within the city," he pleaded, his eyes wide with desperation. "Will you still destroy it? Will you not spare the whole place for the sake of 50 righteous people?" He spread his arms wide as if trying to shield the cities himself. His voice was rising, almost pleading. "Far be it from you to do such a thing," Abraham continued, his voice stronger now, "to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just?" There was a long silence. Then the Lord's voice came, calm and steady, yet full of authority. "If I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city," he said, "I will spare the whole place for their sake." Abraham let out a breath he didn't know he was holding, but his heart wouldn't rest. He lowered his head, his voice softening in humility. "Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord," he said slowly, "I who am but dust and ashes." Then daringly he raised his head and spoke again, with a slight tremble in his voice. "Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking," he asked. "Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? The Lord's gaze was steady. "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there," he answered. Abraham's hands were now trembling, but he pressed on. "Suppose 40 are found there," he asked quickly. The Lord replied simply, "For the sake of 40, I will not do it." Abraham's heart was pounding louder than ever before. He wiped the sweat from his brow and spoke again. "Let not the Lord be angry," he pleaded, "and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there. The Lord answered calmly, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Still not satisfied, Abraham's voice cracked as he pushed further. Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, he whispered. Suppose 20 are found there. For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it, the Lord responded, unmoved. Now Abraham's voice became almost a whisper, his face filled with anguish, his eyes nearly tearing. Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again but this once, he pleaded softly. Suppose 10 are found there. The Lord's eyes softened slightly. For the sake of 10, he said firmly, I will not destroy it. Silence filled the air again as the Lord turned away. Abraham's legs were weak and his heart heavy. The Lord had spoken. The judgment was near. Genesis 18:33. And the Lord went his way, when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. The sun was beginning to set as the two angels approached the gates of Sodom. The city gates stood tall, carved with strange symbols, but the streets beyond were noisy, filled with men laughing loudly, drunkards staggering about, and traders shouting for customers even as darkness crept in. By the gate, sitting on a large stone bench, was Lot, a man with tired eyes and a worried heart. He was Abraham's nephew, and though his face carried the dust of the city, his heart still held some fear of God. Lot's eyes squinted as he noticed the two men approaching. Their faces shone with a strange glow, their steps firm, yet graceful. He stood up quickly, brushing off his robe, his heart pounding as he sensed something unusual about them. Lot bowed low, so low his face nearly touched the ground, his voice both respectful and urgent. My lords, Lot said, his voice trembling slightly, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night. Wash your feet, and in the morning you may rise early and go your way. The angels' faces were calm but serious. One of them responded firmly, No, we will spend the night in the town square. Lot's eyes widened in alarm. His hands shot up in protest, his voice rising. No, I beg you, please! Lot pleaded desperately, his face tightening with fear as he looked around nervously at the gathering darkness and the shadows creeping along the walls. You cannot stay here tonight. You do not know this city. Lot continued, his voice low but frantic. Please come with me. I insist. He reached out, gently but firmly grasping their arms, trying to pull them away from the square. The angels allowed him to lead them, and together they hurried through the winding streets, passing men who watched them with suspicious, lustful eyes. At Lot's house, a modest stone dwelling tucked in a corner, they entered quickly, and Lot bolted the door behind them, his hands shaking. Inside, Lot hurried about, his face lined with anxiety, preparing a meal. Unleavened bread, as was their custom. As they sat to eat, the air outside grew thick with noise, laughter turning to shouting, footsteps stomping closer. Then came pounding, fists slamming against Lot's door, loud and demanding. Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Shouted a rough voice from outside. Bring them out to us, another man barked, his voice dripping with wicked intentions. We want to know them. Here, know means sexual abuse in the biblical sense. Genesis 19:5. Lot's face went pale, his hands trembled. He looked at his guests with horror, then quickly ran to the door. He squeezed through, closing the door behind him, placing his body between the mob and his house. Please, my brothers, Lot said, raising his hands in a pleading gesture, his voice shaking but firm. Do not act so wickedly. But the crowd only grew louder, their faces twisted in wicked smiles, their eyes filled with dark desire. Lot, in a desperate move, said something shocking, his voice breaking. Look, he said, gesturing toward his house, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do to them as you please. But do nothing to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." Gasps spread through the crowd. Some laughed cruelly, but the mob pushed forward, their hands reaching out, their voices now full of rage. "Stand back!" one shouted. "Who is this man to judge us?" another growled. "We will deal worse with you than with them." They surged forward, grabbing Lot roughly by the robe, pulling him toward the door. Inside the house, the angels stood up calmly. Their faces remained composed but fierce. Suddenly, they reached out through the door, pulling Lot back inside with great force. In an instant, they struck the men outside with blindness, every last one of them, young and old alike. The mob staggered back, confused, groping around blindly, crashing into one another. Still, they clawed at the door, desperate to find the entrance, their fingers scraping the walls in frustration. Inside, Lot collapsed to the ground, panting, as the angels bolted the door once more. Their eyes glowed brightly as they looked at him, their voices now steady and commanding. "Lot," one said, "do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, anyone you have in this city, bring them out of this place." Their words were firm and urgent. "For we are about to destroy this place," the angel declared, "because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and he has sent us to destroy it." Lot's heart pounded as the realization sank in. Judgment was coming. Lot's chest heaved as he struggled to catch his breath, his face drenched with sweat. His heart was pounding like a drum inside his chest as the words of the angels echoed in his ears. "We are about to destroy this place." Without wasting another second, Lot sprang to his feet. His hands trembled, but his legs moved swiftly as he rushed to the back room where his daughters were hiding. "Get up! Quickly!" he whispered in panic, shaking them awake. "Gather your things! We must leave at once!" Their eyes widened in confusion and fear, but Lot didn't wait for questions. He stormed out into the night, pulling his robe tightly around him as he dashed through the shadowy streets toward the homes of his sons-in-law, the men who were pledged to marry his daughters. The streets were strangely quiet now. The men who had been blinded were still wandering around, groping at walls and stumbling in the dark, cursing under their breath. Their laughter had turned into groans of confusion and pain. Lot finally reached the home of his sons-in-law and banged furiously on their door. "Open up! It's me, Lot!" he cried out. The door creaked open, and the sleepy, irritated faces of his sons-in-law appeared, rubbing their eyes. "What is this madness, old man?" one of them grunted. Lot pushed his way inside, his face pale, his hands gesturing wildly as he spoke in a hushed, frantic tone. "You must leave this place now," he urged. "The Lord is about to destroy the city. Judgment is coming. Fire, destruction, everything will perish." But the young men only burst into laughter, holding their stomachs and pointing at him mockingly. "Destroy the city? Fire from heaven?" One chuckled loudly. "You must have gone mad with fear, old man," the other sneered. "Go back to your bed and stop bothering us with your foolish dreams." Lot's face twisted in despair. He pleaded with them, his voice cracking. "I'm not joking. Please, for the sake of your lives, listen to me." But they continued to laugh and mock him, pushing him out of the house and slamming the door in his face. Lot stood there in the street, his shoulders slumped in defeat, the mocking laughter still echoing in his ears. He wiped his tears away roughly with the back of his hand. Suddenly, a strong hand gripped his shoulder. He turned to see the angel standing beside him, his face serious, his voice like thunder wrapped in calm. "Lot, hurry," the angel said firmly. "Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away in the punishment of the city." Lot's legs wobbled beneath him as the urgency of the moment overwhelmed him. He stumbled back to his house, his voice trembling as he shouted. "Wake up! Quickly! We must leave now!" he cried, dragging his wife and daughters from their beds. But his wife's face was confused and fearful, and the daughters clung tightly to their father, crying. Still hesitating, Lot fumbled to gather a few things, just a little food, a cloth, anything to take with them, but the angels would not wait. They grabbed Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters by the hands, their grips strong and firm. Their faces glowed with fierce determination. Without another word, they pulled them out of the house and into the streets, guiding them swiftly toward the city gates. The air was thick with dread, as if the very ground beneath their feet was trembling. Outside the city, as they neared the hills, one of the angels spoke again, his voice stern and commanding. "Escape for your life," he warned, pointing toward the mountains. "Do not look back. Do not stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away." But Lot, panting and frightened, pleaded with them, his voice filled with desperation. "Oh no, my lord," Lot cried, falling to his knees. "Behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot escape to the hills. Disaster will overtake me, and I will die there." He looked around, his eyes wide with desperation, then pointed to a small village nearby. "Behold, there is a little town nearby. Let me flee there. It is just a small place. Let me escape there, and my life will be spared." The angel's face remained calm, but he nodded slowly. "Behold, I grant you this favor also," he said. "I will not overthrow the town you speak of. But hurry, escape there quickly, for I can do nothing until you arrive." Lot stumbled to his feet, gathering his wife and daughters. The angel pointed toward the small village, his eyes glowing with urgency. "Run!" he commanded. Lot and his family began to flee toward the village, Zoar. The fire falls from heaven. Genesis 19:23 through 29. Lot and his family stumbled and ran through the valley, their feet slipping on the rocky paths as they fled toward the little town called Zoar. Their breaths came in sharp gasps, sweat pouring from their faces as the sky above them darkened unnaturally. The sun had just risen upon the earth, but instead of light and warmth, an eerie gloom began to spread. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, trembling as if the earth itself were groaning under a terrible burden. Lot's daughters clung tightly to his arms, crying as they ran. "Father, what's happening?" the younger daughter cried, her voice high with fear. "Don't stop! Don't look back!" Lot shouted, his voice hoarse and panicked. "Run! Just run!" Behind them in the distance, a strange roar began to rise, like 1,000 storms rumbling together. Suddenly, from the heavens, fire burst forth, thick, glowing, and furious, raining down upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Whoosh! Massive flames shot down from the sky, engulfing rooftops and buildings instantly. Smoke towered high, black and dense, swirling like a great monster rising from the earth. The very streets melted under the intense heat. People screamed, their voices shrill and desperate, running in every direction, but there was no escape. Men who had laughed at Lot only hours before now wailed in terror, their faces contorted in agony. "Help us!" one screamed, falling to his knees as flames consumed his home. Another man clawed at his burning skin, shouting curses into the air as the fire devoured him. The angel's words had come true. The Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Genesis 19:24. The skies did not stop. Brimstone, hot as molten rock, fell from above like rain. The entire valley was ablaze, trees, rivers, animals, all turning to ash in moments. Lot kept running, forcing his legs to move faster even as the ground shook beneath them. But suddenly, his wife, her face full of fear and longing, slowed down. She could hear the screams behind her. Her heart was torn, thinking of the life she had left behind, her home, her friends, everything she knew. Her steps grew heavier. She stopped. Lot, breathless, shouted back to her. "Keep running! Don't look back!" he screamed, his voice echoing through the chaos. But it was too late. Her curiosity and attachment were too strong. Slowly, trembling, Lot's wife turned her head and looked back at the city. In that instant, her face froze in horror, her eyes widening as the searing heat and divine judgment swept over her. Her body stiffened, her skin turned pale, then white. Before anyone could even cry out, she was transformed completely, turned into a pillar of salt, standing there in the valley, facing the destruction she had longed to see. Lot's daughters screamed in shock, stopping in their tracks. "Mother!" they cried, reaching out toward her. But there was no more mother to save. She stood motionless, a silent statue of salt, forever frozen in the act of disobedience. Lot's face twisted in agony. His voice cracked as he shouted, "No! No!" Tears streamed down his face, but the angel's command echoed in his mind. "Do not look back." With heavy hearts, he grabbed his daughters by the hands again, pulling them away from the terrible sight. They ran toward Zoar, their sobs filling the air, leaving behind the pillar of salt and the burning cities. From a distance, as they reached the small town's edge, Lot and his daughters collapsed to the ground, exhausted and shaking. High above them, thick black smoke rose from the valley, twisting into the sky like the smoke of a great furnace. The once proud cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were no more. Ashes, silence, judgment completed. The heavens themselves seemed to mourn, as Abraham, standing far off near the place where he had spoken with the Lord, looked down toward the valley. He saw the smoke rising and his face grew pale. Abraham whispered softly, tears filling his eyes, "The Lord has done as he said." The earth was quiet now, but the lesson remained, the cave of fear and shame. Genesis 19:30-38. The town of Zoar was spared, just as the angel had promised. But even there, Lot's heart could not find rest. Fear gripped his soul. His hands shook constantly, and his eyes darted nervously at every sound. Though Zoar was untouched by fire, the smell of burning ash still carried through the wind from the valley below. Smoke continued to rise, darkening the sun by day and covering the stars by night. Lot's daughters clung close to him, their faces pale, their eyes swollen from crying. The weight of what they had seen, the burning of their city, the loss of their mother, hung over them like a heavy cloud. Even when it's difficult. In life, moving forward with faith, wisdom, and a clean heart is far safer than clinging to what's already crumbling. What part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts below. Would you have listened to Lot's warning or hesitated like others? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss more powerful stories like this. Your voice matters. Share your lesson. Thank you for watching this powerful story of Sodom and Gomorrah. If you were inspired or learned something new, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deeply moving stories filled with wisdom and life lessons. Share this video with friends and family who need to hear this too. See you in the next story.